Ethicsverse, party time, excellent. Hi guys, welcome to the Ethicsverse. We're gonna have a spooktacular session today on the ethics AI revolution. If you're not familiar with Ethico, we go wild. We have a lot of fun, including on Halloween. Everyone here is dressed up. So jump in the chat, let us know where you're from, drop your LinkedIn in there, tell us what you're dressing up for Halloween. We have an awesome team for you today. We're going to be talking about the AI revolution, ethics and compliance, cybersecurity considerations. We have an awesome slate for you lined up. We're going to go through some announcements here, and then we're going to get into it. So please get your phone out, click on this QR code. You also have links for everything we're going to show you here in the console, but feedback is a gift. So give us your feedback. Let us know how this went. This Ethicsverse is for you. We're trying to deliver value, help you learn, help you sharpen yourself and your career. So give us some feedback so we can keep giving you the best content out there all around the Ethicsverse. So another way that we're giving back is we've partnered with FTI to put out this survey on chief compliance officers, compliance leadership redefined. We did a session on this a couple weeks ago. You can go back and check the recording if you want. There's a little bit more time to do this survey, so get your thoughts in there. You're going to get direct access to the survey when it comes out and learn what your peers are doing to benchmark their context, their leadership context in compliance. We love learning, so let's learn. Check out the Ethicsverse and the Ethico social media platforms, our podcast, our books. Go to ethico.com, jump into the Ethicsverse and find our favorite books in our library and some highly recommended podcasts, including the ethics experts, but a bunch of our friends that run podcasts and learning platforms as well. This episode with Tobias Storason was really a great look into culture, the ways that cultures can be detrimental if they're not managed properly, and the way that you can learn from tough and bad cultures to build a strong culture of compliance and ethics in your organization. Check out the latest ethics experts and keep those emojis coming in. I love them. Fill me up. You know what? I'm going to fill up on candy later, but right now, all I want is a bunch of emojis. Jump into it. FCPA Survival Guide, award-winning, W3 award-winning podcast and written content. Check it out, featuring the voice of compliance, Tom Fox, and everyone's favorite ethics expert, Nick Gallo. Bunch of great content on the FCPA Survival Guide. If you don't know, then you're about to know that employees are 6 to 8 times more likely to report an instance of wrongdoing to their manager than they are to report it directly to the compliance team. So if you're kind of benchmarking and you're saying, hey, maybe we get 1.6, 2 reports per 100 employees per year into our hotline, into our case management system, there's a bunch of that intelligence, that's risk intelligence, that's understanding what's going on in your organization that could be going to your managers. Engaging your middle managers in this middle manager toolkit is a great way to build allies and build advocates for your ethics and compliance program around your company. So we have a bunch of awesome resources here. You can download, customize, put them right into work, and really vault yourself into better engagement around your organization through your middle managers. People are loving this middle manager toolkit, and they're also loving the ecosystem. This is the Ethico software platform, our case management, our sanction screening and license monitoring, disclosures, hotline, a bunch of advanced technology coming out through the Ethico ecosystem. Check us out on G2. We got a bunch of testimonials. People are loving it. And we're also offering up to 1 free year of service. If you're transferring to us or jumping into a new service, we're going to help you by leading with giving and help you make that transition easier. So get in touch with us. The Art of Ideation is our book giveaway today. So what we're doing now is make a LinkedIn post, tag at Ethico, and do a hashtag for Ethicsverse, and that's how you're going to be entered into the book giveaway. This is going to be your best chance to get 5. And you know what? I'm feeling generous. We're going to give 10 and maybe more than 10 books away, depending on how many of those LinkedIn posts that we get. So post on LinkedIn something that you learned in the Ethicsverse today. Tag hashtag Ethicsverse at Ethico, and you'll be entered for a chance to win one of these books. Like I said, we're giving up to 1 year of free service to anyone who wants to upgrade their technology, their software, their vendor and partner, and come see what it's like in the Ethico ecosystem. So with without further ado, we're going to get into the content today. I'm your host, Gio Gallo. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to engage in this really compelling and thoughtful discussion about cybersecurity risks, and especially how the AI revolution can help us get more done, get more visibility with, without spending excessively more money. And we have a great panel here to talk to us today. Take it away, guys.
Okay, thanks, Gio. This looks like me, I guess. My name is Jerry Bless, and CEO of Comply Assistant. Want to thank Ethico for this opportunity today, and really appreciate the great business relationship we have with Ethico and Gio and the gang. So I'll just continue here. You can see I look very much like this, right? So next.
Yeah, that's why when you dress up for Halloween, you look like that. When you got a bunch of pumpkins around you.
Yeah. So we have Jack Uter, who is CEO and owner of Digital Healthcare Consulting. I'm in New Jersey. He's in New Jersey, and he's done work out in Lehigh Valley Health System Health Network in Pennsylvania, and you can see his bio there. We have Rick Kerr, who maybe looks the most like the picture in real life, and Rick is administrator, clinical applications, Lehigh Valley Health Network, again in Pennsylvania. We have Sabina, who definitely looks like that, right, Sabina? And you can see that she's founder and CEO of AI Cloud Consulting Group, and also a managing partner at Valenta. And then finally, we have Marty, who looks exactly like that too. It's amazing. He's senior consultant at Comply Assistant. So very happy to be here. Good morning to some of you, and good afternoon to the rest of you. So, presentation today, navigating the nexus, understanding AI opportunities and the threats of cyber in healthcare, kind of threats it can pose. We'll continue. We already did the introductions, but this is really us. And we'll continue. I think the questions, Gio, they're able to enter questions into the chat. Is that how it's going to work?
Yeah, you can put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A part of the console. So we'll be monitoring those as usual and trying to work them in. And also just want to note for you guys, if you're not familiar with this platform, there's a bar next to these slides. You can move that bar side to side to make the slides bigger or the faces for the panel bigger. So this is how we do it here. You can have it your way. It's even better than Burger King here.
All right, so if we can ask a question here about AI comfort level. We generally ask the audience, whether we're on premise or on a webinar, what is the comfort level? Because it is kind of a new buzz, and if you want to go from 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, maybe we just ask how many folks can say yes or no to their at least 3 or above. Can we pose that question, Gio?
Yeah. Jump in the chat, guys. Give us your rating 1 to 5 on how comfortable you are using AI, or just say yes if you're 3 or above, and we'll see what the audience sounds like here.
All right, great. When can you show that? Is that something
it'll be here. I'll read it off as I see some coming in. But jump into the chat, guys, and tell us how comfortable you are. We got a 3, a 2, a 1, a bunch of 2s. I saw a 4. Congrats to the 4 there. So, we're maybe quick average here about a 2.7. I got a 2.56538. So, that was probably done by Claude AI. That's very precise.
All right, cool. So that's very honest answers. Nobody said 5, right?
I saw 1 5, but
you did. Okay.
I thought I did. No, yeah. Oh, the 5 is from Nick Gallo. He's the AI expert. This guy loves AI. He eats it for lunch.
All right. Okay. You can see we have the Coliseum. How old is AI? Probably a lot of you have heard about it recently, but it does go back to 1955 with machine learning. And, the big buzz, however, occurred in 2000 and around 2021, I believe it was, in 2019, right around there, with the generative AI that caused the buzz. Some acronyms you can see over through the years. We have a bunch of acronyms. If there's one thing about IT in general, there's always acronyms, and with AI, you can see the whole list here. Large language model and everything. This was when, so November 2022 is when the buzz was created with ChatGPT. And here's our topics. So we're going to talk about demystifying. Jack is going to cover that. The AI's transformative impact on healthcare will be covered by Rick. And then Marty gets to talk about a couple items here: cybersecurity challenges, implications for healthcare, building a framework, and learning from the field. And then Sabine is going to bring us to the discussion about the path forward. So we feel that we're covering not only this demystifying of it, creating a greater understanding of what it really is, but also talk about the use cases, because that's really what it comes down to, the tangible part of it in healthcare. How can it be used? The challenges on both the good side and the bad side, the good guys and the bad guys, how they're using AI, and how healthcare organizations can go by frameworks for cybersecurity, such as the NIST AI RMF version 1, which was recently published. That's a good starting point right there. Learning from the field, we're going to talk about where there were incidents that have occurred, and how big the impact is, and how the impacts keep growing, and the time frames for impacting even like health systems being down keeps getting extended, which creates a major impact to healthcare organizations. And then, of course, I said Sabine is going to bring us into the future, and then we'll go over the Q&A. So, Jack, I'm going to turn it over to you. Just tell me when you want me to switch to the next slide.
All right, thanks, Jerry. Good morning and good afternoon to folks here. So I'm going to walk you through the basics, just talking about AI and the various nomenclature around AI. We'll talk a little bit about some of the common misconceptions, and then we're going to give you some real-world examples of AI in everyday life. So AI 101. So this is the way IBM defined it. AI is technology that enables computers to simulate human intelligence. I spent a portion of my career with IBM, and I can tell you that they are very much into this with artificial intelligence. The term AI, artificial intelligence, actually started in 1955 at a Dartmouth conference. So that tells you how far back AI began in terms of its discovery and discussion points around that. At that point, it was more theoretical, but a lot of the scientists were getting together, starting to talk about it. And then move forward to 2024, and noted by Gartner, Deloitte, PwC, they all listed AI as the #1 2024 technology trend. And I can tell you, as a consultant working with a number of clients, this is hot on the list of many of the CEOs and the C-suite in the organization. AI is not, however, the latest trend. It's going to continue to evolve. We are still in the very early stages of taking AI out, but you're seeing more and more of it. The example I'll give you is I just upgraded to the Apple iPhone 16 Pro, and just got the update with the latest release that has AI built into it. So I'm starting to learn some of the features there. AI is not a silver bullet, so it's not going to answer all the challenging questions. It's not going to turn things over immediately. It is not a threat to humanity, and it is not building electronic brains. So this is just a basic introduction into what AI 101 is. So if you take it back, artificial intelligence, we talked about starting in the mid-50s, and you can see that that terminology and discussion point and theoretical discussion went all the way up into the 1980s. And then we turned into machine learning. So a lot of the key computer companies really took it into the next level, where they're actually using machines and building logics and logarithms into machines, called machine learning. And now as we get into the mid 2015, 16s, we're into the deep learning stage. So next slide, Jerry. So let's talk about those terms. Machine learning, that's transferring learning, involves using knowledge so that the AI system can perform one task and improve its performance. Deep learning is where we have complex algorithms that manage complex tasks. And now we're into the stage of generative AI, where we're talking about deep learning and models that can create general text and images. So you see the image on the right with the mouse playing the keyboard, that was AI generated through Da Vinci, as an example. So the recap that I'll give you is AI is a game-changing technology. It's kind of like personal computers. So if you're an old guy like myself and Jerry, you remember the days when the personal computers first came out, and everybody thought, wow, you know, we're taking things from those backroom mainframe and microcomputers and moving them on to personal computers. And that did change. It took time, but it changed significantly. And now we have computers on our phone that are stronger than the original personal computers are. It's not good or bad, but it can certainly have good and bad consequences. And as in healthcare leaders, I will tell you that my recommendation to my clients is explore the benefits, look at the risks, and demystify it. Don't think it's going to change everything overnight. So the example I'll give you is I'm working with a large physician group practice where this CEO, the investment group, wants to get into AI. So what we're trying to do there is make sure they understand where are practical examples of where you can apply artificial intelligence and improve the concept within your organization and show real benefits. And we're going to get into that in some of our next level discussions when we get into it. Avoid the hype, fear, overpromise, and confusion. I can tell you that every vendor that we deal with in the healthcare marketplace has an AI solution. Some of those are just basic machine learning solutions that they've had for 15, 20 years that they're now calling AI. So be careful especially when you're dealing with vendors. That AI topic will hit every one of them, but hopefully through the session today, we'll give you at least some education that'll help you in discussions with vendors.
Jack, can you touch upon the bias potential and hallucination potential of the large language models?
Sure. So bias means that what we're doing is the machines, through the concept of generative AI, are learning from their examples and mistakes. So the machines are actually learning more and more as they go along. However, what they're learning is the input that's coming in from humans. And so the machines, through that concept, can turn into a bias because I may not know it. Let's say I'm the one that's inputting this into the machine, but I have a bias towards a particular topic. And those machines actually will pick that up and include that into the intelligence that they're building in the artificial intelligence. So that's an example where we're seeing bias. So it's a constant reiterative education where the machines are learning on their own, but it can be discriminatory, can include bias. So you have to be careful when you look at solutions that are generated by AI. They may not be perfect from that perspective.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now we're going to move along to Rick, and he's going to talk about the transformative impact on healthcare. So take it away, Rick.
Yeah, fantastic. And thanks for the lead in and support on this. So just a handful of items that I'll cover today, really looking at how incorporating these tools and actually in use can really enhance diagnostic precision, really look at finding efficiencies We're resource strapped, and so finding those efficiencies are critical to continue to provide timely care to our patients. And for our patients, let's elevate that experience, right? There's enough challenges in getting the care necessary. Let's use AI to improve those experiences. And lastly, there's just that administrative overhead, the things that are placed on us, either through regulatory requirements or from the payers. How can we eliminate some of those administrative processes and really streamline the process? Again, the patient is our focus, and so let's do our best to leverage some technologies to do that. So I'll start off with, again, a bit more explanation. I hope that this is good based off of the initial question that Jerry posed. It looks as though a lot of folks have some really basic understanding of AI. So I'm going to take just a couple of moments here just to talk about the spectrum of it. There really are a pretty wide spectrum. As Jack had commented on, this is not a new concept. And also noted, there are vendors saying that they've got some really high-end AI, and they probably fall, if they fall on this spectrum, it may not be to where you may associate. And so on the left-hand side, rules-based logic, that's a very targeted, very repeatable process. It's one that has explicit rules based on certain conditions. And if you repeat this multiple times with the same inputs, you're always going to get the same answer. At Lehigh Valley Health Network, we incorporated this back in 2004 in our advanced or EICU. And it was really looking to identify out of a large cohort of patients that we were monitoring remotely to be able to provide insights without having to have too many resources focused on things like consecutive increases in systolic blood pressure. As you move across the spectrum from left to right, there's calculated risk scores, which are really using statistical models. That's where a lot of the AI that's being claimed from vendors really lands. Next up is predictive analytics. This is great where it's a combination of statistical techniques and machine learning to determine or predict future outcomes. At LVHN, we've adopted one of Epic's deterioration index cognitive computing models. What that allows us to do is early warning for patients that may need intervention by our clinicians. Next up is the targeted neural networks. This is one where you start seeing AI based on image recognition, natural language processing, so listening in on ambiently through the conversations between a provider and a patient, and reducing that into a note for the provider. We also have a solution from VizAI where the system automatically identifies a potential stroke. And even before radiology has had an opportunity to review that image, it's already sending out a notification to a team of neurologists and neurosurgeons so that the intervention time and time for diagnosis and medication or surgical intervention can be reduced. And then again, we've heard all the hype about ChatGPT and Claude and other models. That's where the large language models and generative AI comes into place. We do use this as well. We're a little bit more conservative and make sure we vet these solutions appropriately. But we are using an example of that at LVHN is RadAI, and it is doing the imaging report generation in our radiology space, really teeing up the impression based off of feeding in several months worth of impressions for that provider. So it is provider specific to allow them to be able to expedite their documentation process.
Rick, thanks a lot for that. I think everyone is excited to kind of get into the application, and I appreciate you sharing some of your use cases. How do you view across the spectrum how you and your team consider the risks and the concerns around AI? For example, are you less concerned with, the auditability or the hallucinations for rule-based logic versus do you apply a different kind of level of consideration as you move toward things that are more probabilistic?
Yeah, great question, and one that I think we should all all understand some of this, and I'll provide my thoughts on your question. When we look, the traditional view of things like software or software automation, robotic automation, those are fairly straightforward. Those are on the left side of the spectrum, right? It's rules-based. It's going to have a repeatable outcome. From a testing perspective, you're going to bring this in, you're going to test new software, a new solution, and you're going to be able to validate it pretty quickly with good test scenarios. As you move into the right side, it's much more generalized. You can run the same scenario multiple times and get some variances in the results. And so we're much more cautious in that particular space. We are taking an approach where we have much larger testing scope and volume of test scenarios that we incorporate there. So the more advanced, I'll leave you with, the more advanced the solutions are, the more time that both your IT and your clinical leadership need to evaluate and confirm that what's presented to the clinicians, right, some advice or prioritizing that stroke patient is working in favor and as expected.
Cool. Thanks for that perspective. I think that that's one way that you can kind of rate how much work you need to do to prove this out, right? How much testing do you need to do? How much can you or should you kind of validate the model and make sure that you're getting a consistent response? Something I've heard from other compliance leaders that are really closer to the cutting edge on this is being able, evaluating the extent to which you can audit where that answer came from. There are some AI models that will show you, hey, here's my work, right? Here's where I got to this answer. Here are the sources or something like that. And some, they're just going to give you a result. The person I was talking to got a lot more comfort saying that, hey, anything that has auditable results, we're going to be more welcoming for that because then we can rely on our team to validate that. And anything that doesn't provide that, we need to put in a kind of different category for making sure that we test or restrict that different ways.
Yeah, great points.
Right. So, Rick, I know that you're heavily involved in the governance part of AI at Lehigh Valley. Can you give us some of the folks that sit at that table, across your enterprise that are involved in governance around this?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a nice and well-rounded group. We talked a little bit about, this question came up around bias. One of the members is a member of our ethics group from Lehigh Valley Health Network. Of course, we have our CIO, we have our CMIO, our Chief Medical Information Officer, Chief Information Officer. We also have our Nursing Information Officer on this group, as well as clinicians, folks that represent the administrative rev cycle areas, as well as those that are just absolutely enthused by this and take some of that energy and drive us forward. So pretty expansive. It is a step, our governance is a step before we move it through the formal governance, and approvals and allocation of resources and funding. And so with AI, right, it's quite a bit different than putting up a new building and having a pro forma on services and revenue. AI is yet to be proven. And I think that's another key component of why you want to have a strong governance process, mitigate the hype and find a solution that actually is going to augment and be a tool in solving your current problems.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rick.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on to this slide.
Yep. Thank you. So I probably don't need to go a whole lot of time on this one, right? The key drivers of why we want to move to AI, I think, are pretty well known. We don't have enough staff. The cost to operate a healthcare organization and the revenue, the margins are thinner and thinner. We want to improve quality. We want to be more efficient. We want that experience to be better. And we want to use data to drive decisions. And underpinning all of this is just, there's some incredible advances in technology and the investments that are going into to support AI. And so a lot of great key drivers for AI adoption.
Mm-hmm. Another aspect of AI and the testing of it and making sure around the results of it, a lot of the apps are coming from third parties, and the vetting of third parties has always been an issue with their controls and how could they be vulnerable for an attack like Change Healthcare. But now with AI, there's other aspects of vetting that comes into play with the third parties. You want to talk about some of that?
Sure. Again, a key point, when you pull a piece of software off the shelf, you get it from a vendor, you install it, there tends to be a version number. You may have some bug fix versions come in that. But in general, the tool, the application that you purchase is the same from when you installed it, a day ago, a month ago, a year ago. AI is really much more dynamic, especially on that right side of that spectrum, where there's additional tools, processing, and retraining. And so I think really those are some key things, is to really, I'm just going to augment the discussions that you have internally. Each organization has their own, risk profile, what they're willing to commit to from a risk perspective, to the benefits that hopefully always outweigh, but sometimes there's a balancing act. And so I think, again, continuing to move that forward and do that due diligence up front.
Mm-hmm. So with this PowerPoint that I believe everyone's going to have access to, Gio, so there's an addendum that we're not going to go through the addendum today, but there is one part of it that covers some of the key questions to ask third-party vendors around AI. So that's a good reference right there. As you're vetting the vendors, if they are providing AI-enabled products, those questions should be asked, and I'm sure they're going to, be transitioning to more in the future. More questions will come up. So I just wanted to make that point. So let's talk about the use cases, Rick.
Yeah. The next couple of slides here, we're going to really get into the practical use. I peppered in a couple of examples in an earlier slide, but as you can see here, we're not alone in this. We expect that most healthcare organizations are at least dipping their toe into this space. There are some leaders that are really out there, really championing this, some for several years, using some of these more advanced tools in Cleveland Clinic and using IBM Watson, to Duke Health with a really strong Microsoft partnership. I mentioned technology investments and advancements. Microsoft is really putting together an infrastructure that can scale to support a lot of the processing, and Duke is leveraging some of that expertise there. More locally, Penn Medicine, really looking at AI tools for disease prevention, and Johns Hopkins down the road here, also taking a look at lung cancer treatment, and being able to have an earlier response. And as I think everybody knows, the earlier you can catch cancer, the higher likelihood you have of addressing and mitigating it. So at Lehigh Valley, I want to be cautious. I think we are a leader, but we're amongst a pretty large pack at the front of this race, if you will. Our adoption rate in this space, we have many areas that we focus on. Gave a couple of examples earlier with image recognition. Radiology is certainly one of the leading areas for us. We also have clinical documentation. I mentioned that there is an ambient listening tool, and we're exploring a second because, let's take a look at these vendors. Things are so dynamic. Things are changing quickly. We're going to look at that, but we have 4 solutions in the clinical documentation space. Revenue cycle, again, this is more on that administrative end. Can we use, for example, predictive analytics to determine the most likely method for payments from a patient and really route that information? Let's not waste time, with phone calls and emails if a text message and making it convenient for a patient to pay their bill is the best approach. On the operations side, really need to improve that. This is where some of the scarcity, we hear that there's not enough nurses, which is entirely accurate. There's not enough physicians, especially from a PCP, family medicine, internal medicine perspective. We don't have enough, but I have to say where we are really challenged in a lot of places is to have the operational folks, right? People with experience, people that are efficient in their role. And so how can we augment that? We've got newer folks coming in. There's a fair amount of turnover. There's opportunities elsewhere outside of healthcare. They're drawing on these individuals. And so we have a lot out in the operations space. But where we have, right, as a healthcare organization, I focus most of our work on clinical decision support. 8 of these 14, it lists, in the number here, were custom developed in-house and are embedded within our EHR. That's been fantastic for us because we have some really fantastic people here at Lehigh Valley, and they really dedicated to this, incredibly intelligent, but also very practical, which is another highlight here. All of these focus areas, we start with what is the overall problem? We don't go in with where can we use AI? AI comes a little bit later and becomes one of the solutions. So one of the ones I'm really excited about here, and it's a combination of image recognition and decision support, is really about looking at our robotic surgery and really looking at automating the performance and quality assessments and making sure that we have a learning platform for our surgeons, especially surgeons in training, that really combines the best of image recognition as well as vetting EHR data and other things, pulling that all together to really help us provide better care, not only for our current patients, but for those in training to be able to learn and be better surgeons sooner and quicker.
So Rick, you have I think 36 or so applications there on that page. A bunch of people in the audience have, expressed, maybe lower than a 3 in comfort with AI. And a lot of people in our audience are looking at this through a compliance and ethics lens of where do they need to help manage risks around this, make sure things don't get wrong, make sure that, data is handled properly. I'm wondering if you could give, a perspective on how, as you've adopted these, over 30 different tools in these different areas, how have you seen ethics and compliance leaders engage in a collaborative and helpful way? Because, I think that that's the path forward. I think that we as ethics leaders don't want to just be the brakes on the car and just stop these things from happening. But, need to be able to kind of give our input in a way that facilitates these business decisions. How have you seen that kind of work well? Because I imagine you guys have figured that out through these cycles.
Yeah, well, let me caution. Figured out means we're always learning, right?
Okay.
Lifelong learner, always curious, and so we'll continue the progression of that. But what we've done to date is again have a broader group of individuals participate in our AI steering group, which I'll cover here in a couple minutes. That really come in and give us those guidelines. It's also about a strong level of engagement. I think in the past, organizations oftentimes would have clinical leaders, reach out and say, "Hey, we need to get this tool. We need to get this application, this robotic device, etc." Every time there's a conference, I can always expect within a day or so that we'll get some additional requests. And that's awesome, right? Our vendors are really working hard to try and meet the needs. But at the end of the day, we really need to look at it through a critical eye. The information that feeds these systems, the base set of information, how an AI solution was configured and trained, is probably the most important thing. And so we spend a lot of time asking questions. What is the source of that data? How do you vet it? Is it broad enough? Is it at enough scale to reduce some of the bias? Is it regionalized, right? The care and the needs of patients you would think is universal, but I can tell you, it is different in the Northeast than it is in the South. And there are different states and others that just have challenges that are different from what we face here in Pennsylvania. And so having that broader sense of data, asking some really key questions of the vendors that are promoting these solutions for you, I think is a great way to look at it. We're not going to remove bias immediately, right? The data that we've collected over the years, has bias in it. So we're looking for solutions that actually, and we've not found one quite yet, but could be another tool in our toolbox that can go in and actually test it against bias implications. I think that's one of the things that we can look at and drive, as purchasers of these types of solutions. How do we proactively look at it? How do we vet both future models and, frankly, our existing, these 36 models that we have today? Do we have, an unforeseen, bias being introduced? More specifically on the ethics side, full transparency. Having that transparency is incredibly important with our patients, but I will augment that with our colleagues, our physicians, our clinical staff, and our operational staff. Really making sure they're well educated, they understand what AI is, and frankly, what AI is not. So I think that's really important. And on the next slide that was just brought up, this is where you, again, different in software you might buy and have for a year or 2 or 3, and not think about it. The AI models, again, mostly those on the right side of the spectrum there, more that generative AI, that data can drift over time. And so asking your vendors, or if you're custom developed, do you have data drift, right? How do you assess that? Do you regularly retrain? Is there adaptive learning built in? Can you use a combination of models to vet one versus the other? And what are those feedback loops? So really it's about active monitoring.
Okay.
Governance is coming up, and I think that's great considering the audience and the participants here. We really have a focus, and I wrote this down. We have spent, I think, a good amount of time in pulling some of this together. But AI application review, right? This is on the intake process that I mentioned before. Having policies developed, right? Getting ahead of some of this. Some of the ChatGPT and Copilot and Gemini and some of the other solutions were coming out so quickly. We were not necessarily ready for the deluge of solutions. And we have folks that just want to go out and try. And so we have to have policies. And with policies, we need to have education and training. I think the most important thing with deploying AI is really having an educated workforce that's deploying this, for the workforce that would be using this, and for those that will continue to support it. The external engagement, I think, is really important as well. We don't want this to be just driven by the IT folks. So yeah, a lot of great things there. Open to any other questions, of course.
Thank you, Rick.
Great. So Gio, I just want to have a question. Do we have a hard stop at 12 or,
no, we can run past. Yeah, I know we have a lot
good
to cover here. So let's, I think some people are going to be dropping off at the top of the hour. So let's cover what we can, but I'm fine running long. We do that. This is the Ethicsverse. We can do whatever we want.
All right.
But this, the session is recorded. So if you have to drop and miss the last 5 minutes or something, then you guys are welcome to check the recording. And there's a lot of great stuff in these slides. I was just mentioning in the chat that slide 48 has some of those third-party vetting questions, AI vetting questions. So there's a bunch of great stuff in here. And let's cover what we can. I'm happy to run over.
And we'd also like to hit some of the questions that are coming in too. So
great.
Okay, so what we're going to do is turn it over to Marty now. And Marty, what we'll do on this part of it is probably run through it a little bit faster. We could talk all day about stuff. I'm going to hit some into an 8-hour webinar. So we'll keep it moving.
Very much so. So what we'll do is we'll try to address some of the questions that came up during the course of the session. So why don't we just go to the next one there? All right. So how can AI prevent a cyber attack? That was touched upon by some folks. Well, AI itself can be used through a myriad of your infrastructure device suppliers and software providers to embed in your infrastructure to detect new threats, to do some risk prediction based upon the intelligence that you can gather through your SIEM or through your intelligence input, and take into account the structure of your infrastructure and how that works with interacting with a whole host of folks. There are automated responses, phishing detection. You can use AI to help, not just to counter. Malware detection, there are AI-enabled malware detections and working with vulnerability management. Your SOC, your Security Operations Center, support. A lot of the vendors that provide that type of support are becoming more and more AI-enabled. Fraud detection and, of course, enhanced encryption. Let's go to the next one. So how can it be used by bad actors? Let's say automated phishing attacks, right? That pretty much is sort of the quintessential method that a lot of bad actors get into unsuspecting or uneducated staff, if you will, in your organizations. So they can do stuff called spear phishing, which is very highly personalized phishing emails that they get it highly personalized because they're analyzing social media profiles, public records, other types of communications that can target critical staff and executives in your organization. There's phishing kit automation that can create and distribute phishing websites and emails, making it pretty much easier to target a large number of folks and organizations simultaneously. Malware development. I'm not going to go too much into the detail of the technology behind that, but there's AI-driven ransomware that could be pretty much folded under the malware. It improves the ability to select valuable files for encryption, spread it across networks, and evade detection by using adaptive security measures. That's that machine learning on steroids that AI can do. Password cracking. And then I'll just go down the list. Social engineering, deepfakes. We spoke about a deepfake in previous iterations. An example whereby is a Hong Kong organization. The director of finance, for example, was on a Zoom with his C-suite, CFO, COO, CFO, and stuff, and they directed him to send $25 million to another organization. It turns out that was a very deep fake, not the real CEO or CFO, not the real voice, but simulated and obtained through various other communications aspects. So can't even trust the video and voice. You really need to find ways to validate that type of expenditure before you execute that transaction. Let's go to the next one.
Okay.
How can it be used for good? Again, on the good side, you can use AI to do threat detection, right? You could look at anomalies and learn. The AI models can learn normal behavior of your systems and users, and enable them to detect unusual activities that could indicate a cyber attack, or, such as unauthorized access or some data exfiltration, and then alert the folks that need to be alerted on that. Pattern recognition. AI can recognize patterns in data traffic, user behavior, network activity, and that can indicate the presence of malware, phishing attempts, and other types of cyber threats. There's predictive analysis. You can use threat intelligence to analyze vast amounts of data from various sources, including dark web forums, threat databases, etc. You can
So maybe this is sorry to jump in here, but maybe this is kind of similar to that threat analysis. We have some questions on privacy monitoring. I think that a lot of people in the audience are looking at this advancement in this technology, the potential threats that can happen with people inside their organization just using it wrong, or just kind of losing track of some of these things that, especially in healthcare, we're trying to lock down, charts and PHI and things like that. So how can we talk about monitoring or even just, what as a compliance leader with a small team, how we can get our arms around this, because there's just so many more vectors of risk and so much more data as, there are more of these openings for AI, both within, like, authorized within the organization and from bad actors.
Yeah. So, Jerry, can we go through next slide?
Oh, sure.
All right. I'm not going to talk about cyber insurance right now, but cyber insurance is very critical to an organization. There are various different types, and the detail is provided in the slides. Implications, that's where we need to get to. So this will hopefully answer a lot of those questions.
Thanks,
next.
You want the next
Jerry.
slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. So to get, let's go to the administrative side of compliance, right? Consent. The consents really should be reviewed and updated in your organizations if need be. For example, the question was asked, where's the data going? How do I know it's safe? A patient presents in the ED, for example, and says, you know what? I found out that you guys are using an AI capable system to diagnose my problems and provide me a treatment plan. I didn't consent to that. Is there a way to perform that without AI? I don't like AI, right? So, so consent at the very beginning of an episode of care, incorporating the AI world, if you will, is critical. So you need to review that with your compliance and your legal teams. The legal teams are pretty much coming up to speed with a lot of this in their compliance and consent language. So that's something to review with them. The third-party assessments. The covered entity, of course, is responsible, but your business associate agreements also have to be updated or at least reviewed to ensure that, the business associates are also undergoing an assessment to ensure that they're in compliance with HIPAA and that they know where their data is coming from, and they know where the data is stored, how it's de-identified or re-identified. Hopefully not so, but it can be, right? So a lot of these administrative tools that we currently have really could be used in an AI environment as well. Just need to sort of tweak those and get those updated by your legal team. All right, change management is a big thing too. So as Rick was saying, you have version controls, you have change management committees, you have all this great stuff, but AI is, doing it at the speed of AI. So, in addition to this normal pentagon of, 5 major, areas of change management, in the middle there, it's sort of, you got to have interim steps to address each of the cycles of the AI systems that you use and to learn, right? So you have to be trained. The AI system is training, and we need to keep up from a compliance and regulatory perspective as well. Now, is there a silver bullet? No. We were just at a meeting in DC yesterday, and the American Hospital Association is working with regulatory bodies, Congress, and stuff to address these things, but they're not there yet. So vendors and all of us are going with this AI, and the regulatory bodies still has some catch up to do. So we've got to use the tools that we have at hand right now. Next. All right. So again, like which occurs today, you need to have a robust encryption protocol. Legacy systems, I'm sure there's still some legacy systems out there, no matter what we have. And, we need to ensure that encryption is pretty tight. Stringent access controls, right? You can't have administrative access to all your end devices just because it's more convenient for your IT teams to address and update and such. You really need to be very strict with your access controls. Regular system audits and vulnerability assessments. A lot of folks just sort of gloss through these things at times, but they are really, really critical right now. I think we heard that there was a smaller healthcare organization that got fined about $250,000 by HHS because they could have caught their vulnerabilities according to HHS. They performed periodic reviews and assessments and audits of their infrastructure and their software. So staff training, the staff has got to constantly be trained. You constantly got to go through those scenarios and those exercises where you're trying to fish them and stuff. The more you do, the more often, the better. But it's not practical to do every month. But you got to keep them on their toes a little bit. They need to be trained and maintain that compliance.
Yeah, and so Marty, the regular system audits and vulnerability assessments. There's also the new NIST AI risk management framework version 1, which would be a great framework to get familiar with and to do those kind of audits against that framework and controls and vulnerabilities. So I just want to mention that because that was published last year, was it? Recently.
Yeah, and HIPAA is going to be updated here in the next year or so, from what we understand. There's HICP, right? So HICP is geared towards small, medium, and large type organizations. If HICP is not required, but it certainly helps out in your HIPAA compliance and maintain the cybersecurity readiness of your infrastructure as well. And one of the things that you did was really, really great. Small organizations can't afford the type of mitigation that large organizations can. So they address that in those checklists. I think there's a question about monitoring and auditing. What does it look like? It's an amalgam, if you will. It's like any other group of compliance where you have a multidisciplinary team together, where you'll have your security folks, both from a physical and from a information security perspective. You'll have some clinicians, you'll have some the compliance folks, maybe the legal team representative. And the input is both from a reporting mechanism that usually is the case in compliance audits, but also automated means that can be managed by the IT folks.
Okay. Thanks, Marty. And then learning from the field, you're going to talk about, some examples here, right? Marty,
So, we all know about the big hits in healthcare, Change Healthcare, Kaiser Permanente, and Ascension. But the takeaways on that really are, third-party access to your systems is a vulnerability that's been exploited by the bad guys. You really do need to make those assessments of those third-party actors in your organization, right, or that work with the organization. And downtime is not for a day or two, but downtime could extend for a month, 6 weeks, a couple months. And, can your organization survive, financially during that time that mitigation and such.
That's why it's key to have extended business continuity plans, right, Marty?
Yeah, absolutely.
Those kind of scenarios, tabletops.
Yeah. And include your frontline folks. Yeah.
Okay, Marty, thank you. And now Sabina with the path forward.
Thank you so much. And I guess with this, I will kind of wrap up what everybody else has talked about as well. So on this slide specifically, I want to zero in on the role of collaboration and information sharing in combating cyber threats. So I just came back from an event hosted by HIMSS here in New York, and the topic was interoperability. And that was really the core of the conversation on TEFCA. I don't know how many of you are familiar with TEFCA, but TEFCA stands for the Trusted Exchange Framework and Common Agreement. It's an initiative started by the U.S. government about 8 years ago. And the idea of TEFCA is to make it easier for healthcare providers, patients, and other stakeholders to securely share electronic health information across different health information networks. So think of it as trying to create a universal internet of health data. We all know how much health data is just distributed across different networks right now. And when we talk about, we've all heard the phrase now, garbage in, garbage out. And I think we're all at a level 2 or above, and we're perfectly aware that if there's not good quality data, it's not going to provide good quality information. So if you train a model on bad data, inaccurate, incomplete, biased, then that AI will produce unreliable and potentially even harmful results. So the key is really having collaboration and information sharing, which we're seeing is a big push now. All the big healthcare systems are actually required to share that information because of some of these frameworks and laws that are coming into fruition, like TEFCA. You can go to the next slide. So AI's transformative impact on the people that provide healthcare and those that will receive healthcare is an important one as we look at the future. And even the folks that will develop the solutions for healthcare providers, right? We already just talked about change management, and that's what we're going through right now. I have been actually looking at some of the site chats and people's concerns about generative AI. And it is true that many people are using AI chatbots like Gemini, Perplexity, Claude, Copilot to do various tasks, to do emails, to write content, to conduct research, brainstorm. And there is a new term called BYOAI, which is called Bring Your Own AI. And 78% of people in their organizations are using that, which, yes, is exposing your organizational information outside and perhaps some patient data as well. So what I've noticed as I've talked to healthcare providers is that there's an early adoption of tools like the Microsoft Copilot. And this is particularly appealing to organizations that are already using the Microsoft 365 suite. And a key advantage is that Copilot keeps the data within the organization, leverages internal information to boost productivity without compromising privacy or compliance. So we're going to start seeing these closed network generative AI tools come up first, just because privacy is a very big concern. Some of the other use cases that we're seeing, and that are going to be transformative using AI is hyper-personalization, right? AI models leverage large data and historical records to really create personalized content, which is going to be game-changing when it comes to healthcare providers providing them to their patients. AI augmented clinicians. This really refers to how AI augmented intelligent automation can help the doctors and nurses make decisions better and to help them do their job better. So almost as an assistant, a very smart assistant to clinicians, is so that a lot of information is at their tips. We are seeing the democratization of healthcare. And by that, I mean that AI-powered devices, like Rick mentioned one as well, is enhancing access and quality of care, particularly in underserved communities, by connecting patients and doctors remotely and being able to provide, and even globally, provide this information and healthcare to folks that may not have access to good healthcare where they live. And obviously, accelerated drug discovery is a huge one because drug discovery is so much about analyzing vast data sets. AI has really accelerated drug discovery, and some of the numbers have been that when it was taking 10 years to do some of these drug discoveries, now it's going to take 3 years to really analyze that amount of data. And whether, that drug, and it's billions of dollars, right? The number is, I think, $1.2 billion for just one drug that goes through the process of discovery and coming to market. And so it's going to save money and it's going to save time, which is critical when it comes to finding a cure for cancer or finding a cure for things that we can't even, solve for right now. Let's go to the next one, shaping a responsible AI future for healthcare. I think, again, this is a topic, a lot of questions around it. Folks have talked about it this on panel as well. Let's imagine a future where doctors diagnose diseases and more accurately personalize treatments to individual patients, and even accelerate the development of life-saving cures. But the future hinges on the critical factor, ensuring that AI is developed and used responsibly. And Rick has talked about it, Marty's talked about it. We've all talked about bias. There have been questions about bias, and we know that inherently it exists within our data. And how are we going to make sure that as we set up these frameworks, as these policies, that we really pay attention to the bias and make sure there's no misdiagnosis, especially for the underrepresented groups that may not have data available. Privacy, again and again, I think that is one of the biggest conversations on the table right now. I don't think anybody's fully solved it, but there's a lot of work going around. How are we going to make sure that we look at the future of privacy and with the future of AI? It's very tightly integrated. We've had requirements, we talked about there's going to be updates to HIPAA, and what do we see privacy, and how do we see privacy, and who's really going to be responsible for privacy in which point in the whole process development. Again, over-reliance on AI can also be a bad thing. AI is a powerful tool, but it's not a replacement for human judgment. And we need to ensure that clinicians retain the ultimate control and responsibility, using AI to augment their expertise, not replace it. We need collaboration, like I mentioned, amongst different systems. We need education to really educate clinicians and the public about the potential limitations and also about the potential harms of AI, but also the capabilities of AI. There's a lot of misinformation out there, or there's a lot of hype around it. So you can see people that are either very excited, or there are folks that are very wary of what's going to happen in AI. And it's very important to put education around, like we're doing in this webinar, and talking about it. And as innovation is important, so is regulation. And that's a great conversation on what's the balance between over-regulating and regulating to a point where it's used safely and ethically. So I would just say that with this, the future of healthcare is full of promise, but it's up to us, all of us here, to shape it responsibly. And so how do we work together to ensure that AI benefits everyone and helps us create a healthier, more equitable world? Thank you.
Thanks, Sabina. Gio, did you want to make some comments?
Yeah, sure. Listen, we appreciate a bunch of you have stayed over, so thanks for giving us even a little bit more of your day. I really appreciate the panel coming here and sharing so much content with us. A few standouts for me, as we talked about, you need to step into this and you need to educate yourself. It's a great concept to think of being part of the steering committee, because your organization is probably moving forward on a bunch of different use cases, and you want to be able to facilitate your team approaching and pursuing their mission, and being part of those conversations. So, if there's that steering committee, see if you can get on it or start one. We talked about things like hallucinations, how to monitor privacy, how to implement this with consent where needed. And there was just so much good stuff here. And, there's also the slide coming around. I know a few people were excited about this in the chat. Slides will be sent out tomorrow that will include some tips for vetting your AI vendors. Listen, I think we all know that this next layer of technology that's being put on top of the writing tablets that people used to have, and then the calculators that people use, and the computers and the smartphones, this is just the next layer. And what we need to do as ethics and compliance leaders is making sure that we're supporting that we're facilitating that, and we're helping people not just minimize risk, but optimize how they deal with the risk that's there. And with more education like this, there's been a great, conversation going in the chat. We hope that you guys have used this to level up and get a little bit more comfortable with AI. Hopefully you're going to be able to rate that a little bit higher next time. And I really appreciate our panel bringing so much knowledge and experience and application to us today. Thanks for being on the Ethicsverse today. Join us next week. This is the coolest place to be, every Thursday at noon Eastern. We'll see you next time in the Ethicsverse.